Well, we can get started. Um, so welcome to Beyond Bang, WHAM, and POW, How to Create Compelling Narratives in Graphic Novels by the Graphic Novel Advisory Board. So if you don't know who we are, we're an organization at Ithaca College dedicated to bringing graphic novels into libraries, into communities, and into the hands of everyone. And we also do workshops like this. So I already did an introduction, cross that off our agenda. We're going to be talking about the components of narrative, give you guys a rundown of what makes a good narrative. We're going to talk about the difference between comics and textual stories. And we're going to do a little practice activity, filling in the blanks. And then we're going to specifically talk about how to integrate narratives into comics. We're going to do a quick fairy tale practice, and then we're going to actually script a comic. Here we go, narrative structure. Caitlin's going to tell you all about it, and I'm going to take over texting Catherine.
Okay, so we are just going to be starting with narrative plot structure diagram. A lot of you might be already familiar with this sort of thing. We're going to do a quick overview. It'll help recontextualize what the other activities we're going to be doing in the workshop later. So for this workshop, at least in the beginning, we're going to be using the story of the Three Little Pigs, pretty recognizable, to be talking about plot structure and that sort of thing. So I have this little diagram up here that shows sort of like the basic track of a story. It's you orient yourself in the story, the setting and the characters. In Three Little Pigs' case, that would be three little pigs leave home and they build their houses out of different materials. Rising action, for example, would be the wolf blows down the first two houses, can't blow down the third. Climax is he climbs down the chimney and gets boiled, depending on which version of the story you are reading. Falling action, pigs clean up, now they're safe. Resolution, happily ever after, that sort of thing. And a more complex story obviously would have a lot
you're not gonna believe this, Dad, but
upticks.
Sue me if my calculator.
The host, there we go. So a more complex story probably has a lot of these different upticks, but in general, this is what it will look like. We can go on to the next slide. So a quick plot description of Three Little Pigs is written out here. This is just to get you familiar. If you don't remember the story, it begins with the characters being sent into the world by their mother to seek out fortune. First little pig builds a house out of straw, wolf blows it down. In some versions, eats the pig. The second little pig builds a house of sticks, which the wolf blows down. Second pig is also eaten. Each exchange between wolf and pig features different phrases that you probably know. And then the third pig builds his house out of bricks. The wolf cannot blow it down and tricks the pig into, by asking to meet him at several places, but is outwitted each time. Finally, wolf is defeated, and then there is happily ever after. We can move on to the 6 elements of the story. These are the different things we're going to be talking about. Again, to reorient you for the workshop. So setting, plot, character, point of view, tone, and theme. These are the 6 elements of the story that every story will have in one way or another. Doesn't matter how abstract or concrete they are. Next slide. So setting is the time and location in which the story is set. In this case, Three Little Pigs, the woods, magical land, on a farm, in a kingdom, whatever that might be. Next is plot, the sequence of events that presents the audience with the protagonist and with the story and the ultimate goal of the story. Three little pigs build houses out of 3 different materials. Wolf blows them down. We kind of went through the plot already. Character, a story usually has one or more characters. Each character has a different role. In many cases, there is a protagonist, sometimes an antagonist. Protagonist is working to overcome whatever conflict there is in the story. Antagonist is working with the conflict. Three Little Pigs in this story would be protagonists. Wolf is the antagonist. Doesn't always have to be a villain. Antagonist doesn't always have to be bad. Point of view. The three most well-known, most recognizable points of view that you probably come across are first person, second person, and third person. There are other points of view, but in this case, we're just going to be talking about these three. First person is using things like I or we, like I built a house out of sticks. Second person is referring to you in the story. It positions the person as the person taking place in the story. So for example, you build a house out of sticks. Third person, you would use he, she, it, they, etc. And for example, that would be they built their house out of sticks, hay and bricks. Next we have tone. So tone is a little more complicated, but every story ultimately has a different tone. It's kind of answering what is the overall feeling you get from the story. It can come through the words, or in graphic novels case, the pictures and the style sort of part of the story. You could pitch the Three Little Pigs in many different ways, and it has been pitched in many different ways. It can be scary, it can be funny, serious, hopeful, sad, happy, any other adjective. You could pitch that story if you, the author, decided to make the tone that way. Theme is the last thing we're going to be talking about. And it's, what is the underlying message of the story? What does it teach us? What's the point? There is usually a point to a story that you are writing or that you're reading. It's not necessarily just on the surface. It can have underlying subtextual meaning and that kind of thing. So here, what I decided I was getting from the story of the Three Little Pigs was that hard work and dedication pay off. The third pig built his house out of bricks and ended up being the best protection against the wolf. And this is obviously a fairy tale, a moral story, so it's meant to have some type of little moral. It does not have to be that clear, and there can be many different themes in one story, sort of like a track that it's going on, and you can also track them through the story. That is a very quick overview of the 6 elements of a story and narrative plot structure.
All right, thank you. If anyone has any questions on narrative structure, just put it in the chat. Caitlin or someone will send a message and help you out. But right now we're going to talk about the difference between comics and textual stories. So does anyone want to take a guess about like the difference between a graphic novel and just like a textual novel? What's the big difference? I'll give you a hint. It's visuals. It sounds super duper obvious. Okay, visual cues. It's the biggest difference, and that sounds really silly to say because obviously it's a graphic novel, graphic is in there, but it's very important because what makes a graphic novel so special is that the text and the visuals work together to tell a story. They can tell you the feelings, it can provide more information. If you look at that first panel, that's from C.C. Bell's El Defo, and it's showing you how she feels by using a metaphor, by using a graphic metaphor of her being caught on a line and unable to escape this friendship. In the second group of panels, it shows clarification and adds to the story. She says to keep from going batty, she made use of her hair. She's exercising, she's jumping rope, she's using it as a weapon. It tells the story. And also another way that graphics can tell narrative is not even using words, just using pictures to show what's going on. So she's taking a hearing test and she's not doing very well in that one. She's not hearing the beep in each panel. And this is one of my favorites. I love when graphics and text kind of go against each other. So this one's talking about how wonderful she fell and how she landed gracefully and she climbed down the tree and she's just falling. She's just totally falling on her butt. And I think it's really great to use that irony when using graphic stories. I have some anti-examples too. It's essential to do that interplay. And when you don't have that interplay, it's lacking. So here's some from an adaptation of Jane Eyre. It says, I stopped to tie my sandal. And it's like, there's a picture. I can see that. Why would you tell me? And also, that's a really bad picture anyway, so I can't really tell. And then this one, it's just, again, it's just really weird. It's just describing exactly what's going on. He's sitting, he sees a carriage, it's pulling up. And it's just not an effective use of the text. It's not an effective use of pictures. And so when you're making graphic narratives, it's really important to try and make those work together. So now Mac Allen is going to lead you through an example to help you guys start working on doing interplay between text and between pictures.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mac, and we are going to try our hand at working with some graphic visuals today. So how are we going to do that specifically? Well, I'd be more than happy to show you. So as you see here, we have a few empty panels where you can fill in the blank for some prompts. Feel free to screenshot them and add them. I will send an example in the chat right now. But this is basically, you know, trying to figure out the format of graphic novels and how they play into each other. So I'm gonna send one in the chat, and yeah, tell me if it's funny or not. I wouldn't know. I am not a funny man, but there is so much more to work with in terms of graphic narratives, but we're giving you guys the bare bones here. So we're giving you the lettuce and cheese so you can make your own graphic novel burger one day. Here is my example in the chat. If anyone would like to open it up, more than happy to. But yeah, feel free to experiment. There's many different things that could go in these bubbles.
Mac, I'm going to send the one that I just made because I think we are sharing the same brain.
Really?
Yeah. Like literally open mine up.
It's the same thing.
The same. The same.
That's so funny.
Thinks about school.
Yeah. I'll read what I wrote for context for everyone who is not as tech savvy as me. So the first panel, it's Big Nate. That's the guy with the ears and the spiky hair. And the first bubble, what I put was, I have 2 weeks of undergrad left. And the second thought bubble says, ew, time to think about something else. Shinkei did something very similar. They put finals are in 2 weeks. Ew, time to think about something else. So if you would like to know what GNAB is thinking about, it's pretty clear.
Like acknowledging the passage of time, realizing that we only have so much time left as students. And we go, no, 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 no.
Romance. Ew, time to think about something else. I agree. When I watched WandaVision, I was like, oh, this is so cute. I want it. And at the same time, I was like, this seems like a lot of effort to put into someone else. I think I'll just focus on me for now.
Does anyone else want to share anything before we move on? You don't have to, but we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Given that we all have 2 weeks left of classes on the brain, I don't think we're in the right place to judge.
All right. So we're going to talk real quick about drafting your comic to help you guys with the next activities we're going to do. So there are 3 ways you can draft your comic. One is by, these are just all of them right here, but we're going to go through them. So the first way is called thumbnail format. And so you would actually draw everything out, and then you would put on the side what your text is. So like the one in that bubble coordinates to a one on the other side that says what's being said. For today, we don't quite recommend doing this just because of time, but feel free to do this in your spare time. We have a screenplay format. And this is kind of nice because it tells you everything that's going on. It might be nice for today, but the one that we think might be really nice to do would be the comic format. And so this one tells exactly what's going on in the panel and exactly what's being said, and it kind of organizes it in your head. So like page 4, panel 1, running through the woods, panel 2, on a hunt. And if you go down to panel 5, it says like which, no, Sebastian. And so it says what's being said, it says what the picture is, whereas the other one doesn't quite tell you how it breaks up. It doesn't say where the panels are. It's kind of like this, I think, would probably be if you were like an author and then you'd give this to an illustrator and then the illustrator would figure it out. But we really want you guys to try and work with that interplay, trying to put the words and the images together. So we're going to suggest you do this one. And to practice, we're going to do a fairy tale practice with Cole Herman.
All right, hello everybody. So we just looked at the 3 Little Pigs, and now I'm going to be leading you through an activity where you will make a small little 5-panel comic of any fairy tale you would like. So firstly, before we get into it, I'd like to show you 2 different adaptations of the 3 Little Pigs that we just looked at, so you all have a good idea of what's going on. This is an older comic by Disney. This sort of ties into, there's a lot of interplay between the visuals and the text. They complement each other, they aren't fighting each other. There isn't anything conveyed visually or textually that could easily be conveyed within the other medium. And the next one we have, this is a more recent adaptation of the 3 Little Pigs, and even though there's a more unique, more visually striking art style, absolutely no complaints about the arts here, there's a lot less interplay. This doesn't really play with the format of a graphic novel as well as the Disney comics. So yes, absolutely, Caitlin is very much right. Big difference in tone. The first one is much more bright and lively, and this one is obviously a lot more jagged and dark, and just looking at it immediately obviously conveys a much different atmosphere and tone than the first one. So keep this in mind while working on your activity. We are going to have you pick a fairy tale or any story you want, really, but fairy tales are just well suited to 5-panel comics. We have another little example right here of Puss in Boots. And yeah, on the next page, we have some examples of writing as well that you can sort of work from. So we will keep that up, correct? While everybody takes a stab at it for a bit. All right, let's wrap up what we're finishing up. And if anybody would like to share, please go right ahead. Well, we already have a couple great ones in the chat, if you haven't given those a look.
All right, thank you for everyone who shared in the chat. Those are awesome stories. So now we're gonna do like a big old scripting project now that you've warmed up a little bit. So we are going to give you guys a prompt and we're gonna start writing. So we are gonna talk a little bit more about characters. So think about characters you may have already been writing about, characters you wanna know more about. And remember, a character can be kind of anything. It could be a person, it could be an animal, you could have heroes and villains, you could have fun teams with multiple characters. But characters are kind of the foundation for almost any story. So that's where we're going to start for this prompt. And so one of our GNAB members created this awesome prompt for you guys. And he created this character called, I think his name is Squirrely. Nutty the Squirrel. His name is Nutty the Squirrel. And this is his comic called Peanut Power. So something to remember about when you're doing your characters, you have a lot of questions to answer. Where are they? What are they doing? And so you can see in this panel, we see two green trees on either side of them. The squirrel is running away. So in this one panel, on this first page, you've established who your main character is, it's Nutty the Squirrel, and where they are in a forest. And that might seem really obvious, but this can still be applied to any character you have. These are things that should be established pretty early on for the narrative. And to give you an idea of what it looks like transcribed into like an actual comic format, here it is. So there's our first one. Nutty the Squirrel was very late. You see him in his nice little panel, and then we see the next part. Nutty enters a clearing where they find their friend Beaker. And so this is kind of like a translation, so you can see, kind of get it into your head, like imagine it a little better of what it looks like when you take your script and turn it into a comic. So now your script, we have a prompt. So your character's hungry for food. Think about your character. What does your character eat? Every character has a different appetite. Nutty the Squirrel like nuts. What is your character like? Then have them begin to search for some of their food. Get some conflict going. Another character gets in their way. And then try to have them solve that conflict. How will your character get their lunch? How will your character eat their food? And try and practice with the script. Get some page numbers, do some panel numbers. Remember to utilize scene descriptions. Remember to utilize either captions or word bubbles. And try your hand at the prompt. I'm gonna see real fast. Okay. Would you guys rather see the prompt or would you rather see the page? Shout it out. They could both be helpful in different ways.
I kind of like seeing the page because
Okay.
it sort of illustrates the prompt also at the same time.
Sounds good. Okay. So we'll take some time, figure out your character, figure out how they're going to get their food, figure out what's stopping them, and we'll come back together. If you have any questions, type them in the chat. Just let us know. Let's go.
Hold on. I literally just made a panel and I didn't realize that I could, when I entered it, it completely just sent it. I'm so sorry.
You're totally fine. Don't
Oh,
worry about
yeah,
it.
no worries. If you want to write it in the chat, if you click shift enter, it'll actually enter and like give you space rather than sending it.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's fine. It's exciting to see where you're going.
Thank you. Dang it, I did it again. It's shift enter, right?
Yeah, kind of like at the same time. It's fine. You can just keep sending it. And then
Okay.
like by the end, we'll have your whole story.
Okay.
Oh, maybe that doesn't work. Maybe it just doesn't like it at all.
I tried to do it and it's just sent. Do we want to go until like 1:45? Or 1:50?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think this ends at 1:50 technically. So we'll do 1:45, have a minute to talk, and then Shinkai will share her like actual comic and panels.
Yeah, their comic, yeah.
All right. I know that wasn't like a lot of time, but this can be a great beginning to something. Does anyone want to share what they've written? We got some work in the chat, but you can unmute, say what you wrote, or you can send it in the chat, whatever works for you.
I guess I did kind of share a lot of my stuff, but basically, I didn't write it all, but she was going to go to her house to get some food, and they're very shady people. So she's like really skeptical walking past the route. She's just like sort of stumbles over a guy, and then everybody's like sort of getting closer to her as she's like trying to back away into her house, and she's like being grabbed at, and then finally gets into her house to get the fruit. A little bit not in the humor side, more on the scary side, but I mean, hey, that's sorry for you.
Whatever works. All right, I see some more in the chat. Very nice. All right. And so now, as like a cool treat, Jing K is going to share their comic that they have been working on, and you're going to see a script kind of what like it looks like, but I'll let them tell you about it.
So earlier this semester, I was working on a thesis of which it was a comic, and the method of which I had to do it was I had to have, well, I chose to do it this way, but you know, there's various ways. I started writing a script, and I basically started to storyboard off of that script. So am I allowed to share my screen? Ooh, exciting. Okay, give me one. So basically, a little context for the actual thing. Jewel of the Sea is an interactive webcomic that is currently in the very early development stages. The following is an example of storyboarding. I'm taking information given by the script that has been written previously and creating basic graphics to understand the visual structure of the scene. The actual comic is about a mermaid with amnesia who meets a prince caught in the middle of a world war. It contains themes of fantasy, war, drama, romance, and provides center stage for LGBT POC. And then also, if you want to learn more about it, I plug my social media. Aha. Anyways, so this is the little bit of the script that I was working with. Exterior, some docks, sunrise, sets the place. And then Jewel, the main character, a mermaid, thousands of years old, looks around mid-20s, swims along the coast. Description of their body, nearly 10 feet, big old mermaid. They stop at some docks where a couple is moving supplies onto a ship. The woman kisses a man before he boards. Jewel watches and follows the ship as it sets sails and then peels off from the ship later. So I take that and I create the scene, the structure of what the person is seeing. So like if I had a camera and this was in real life, like this is how this. So you can see the script over here that I had worked with. And as the scene continues, it's marked at the bottom, like what's happening. So the script again, over in the top right, the description of the character. So that means the description of the character needs to be seen and understood through the panel as well, along with like scene and stuff, backgrounds. Obviously, this is very early in its stages, so there isn't a lot of detail. Continue. They stop at the docks where a couple does their thing, you know, mermaid at the docks. The couple does their little thing. The woman kisses the man before he boards. Kiss. And Jewel watches, and we get to see like how this all unfolds visually in comparison to like how it was written narratively. And also as the storyboarder has to create the visual elements of the storytelling, there are extra things that are to be implemented. In particular, also like the interactive bits are noted. So they're just like kind of, my method of organizing is a little bit all over the place sometimes, but I have like notes on the side in regards to what's going to be interactive. So like the visual, Jewel's eyes sparkle, the reader rolls over the eyes and reveals the title. Jewel follows the ship. We see the ship peel, and we see little Jewel in the water following it. And as the like motion continues, as does the panel, we see, and that's it. Wow, that just messed up my computer real bad. It's okay.
All right, thank you for coming. Are there any questions? Any questions for anyone, Shinke, or any of the other sections?
You can, is this workshop also on our website? Yeah, so I believe this presentation and workshop is also linked on our website. You can look up Ithaca College Graphic Novel Advisory Board and that will pop up. And we have plenty of other resources there as well. For like graphic novels you can read, that sort of thing. And of course, good luck on creating your own graphic novels and comics. And it will also be linked on the Comic Book Club website soon. Catherine said in the chat. With that, are we gonna wrap up, Nina?
Thank you everyone for coming. You can get in contact with us on that website. We have our email, we have an Instagram. Stay in touch. We'd love to see any stories you write. We hope you have a fun time at ITHACON. Go see the other panels and things. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.